and good day. It is a Tuesday, April the 12th, 2011. Welcome to The Exchange. I'm your host, Scott Spears, joined by Charlie Evers, Marianne Michaels, Fritz the Night Owl. Marianne, let everybody know who our sponsors are today.
Peacock Water Conditioning. Their mission is simply, they want you to love water, their water. 1800 Marion Marysville Road, Marion, Ohio, 43302. Also located in Bucyrus, and you can call them at 740-387-6312. Then Bubby Men's Games. They buy, sell, and trade new and vintage games. 131 West Center Street, Marion, Ohio, 43302. You can call them at 740-341-7009. It's open Tuesday through Saturday, 12 o'clock to 8 p.m. It's closed Sunday and Monday. Then there's the Ohio Neck and Back Pain Relief Centers. Scott M. Gray, who is the doctor of chiropractics. It's across from the Marion Center between TSC and Kroger. That number is 740-386-6580. And Night Hour Theater, located on the net at www.fritzlives.com. To receive updates, you can email nightowltv@yahoo.com.
Thank you, Marianne. And today, we go to this day in history with Charlie Evers.
Well, a lot of things happened this particular week. And the big one was Apollo 13, which was launched from Cape Kennedy at 2:13 p.m. on April 11th. 56 hours into that flight, though, an oxygen tank exploded in the service module. Astronaut John L. Swigert saw a warning light that accompanied the bang and said, "Houston, I think we have a problem." And they certainly did. And then Harold Washington became the first American mayor, the African-American mayor of Chicago. He received 51% of the vote. He was reelected in 1987, but suffered a fatal heart attack in his office 7 months later.
And that's the day in history.
Just some of the things that happened.
Now let me tell you something. If you're looking for something to do tonight, once this show is over, our friend Fritz the Night Owl is going to give you a movie that is a must-see. It is the Flick Pick with Fritz the Night Owl.
Well, as mentioned before, I tried to come up with movies that you haven't read about these or heard about these or seen these, such as the Casablanca, the Red River, the Gone with the Winds, etc. Try to find some things that are a little out of the ordinary, but have some value, still would be interesting. Good hour and a half today. The one I got tonight for you is a musical. Now, normally when you think musical, you think MGM and you think Singing in the Rain and American in Paris, or you think 20th Century Fox with Betty Grable and all of the Dan Daly, all of the great musicals they did at 20th. Well, Warner Brothers also made musicals, and their big stars were Virginia Mayo and Dennis Morgan and Jack Carson and quite a few others. One of their biggest was called, the one I'm recommending tonight is called Romance on the High Seas. This goes back to 1948. It's in color. Gave it about 3.5 stars out of 5, but it's notable because it is the very first film debut for the one and only Doris Kappelhoff, whom we all know better as Doris Day. And Doris is just terrific. She had been a big band singer with Les Brown and his band of renown for years, and somehow or another got discovered at a party and got put in this movie. Originally they were going to have Judy Garland in the movie, but something happened to Judy, she couldn't make it. Then they cast another big musical star of the day, Betty Hutton, but Betty became pregnant, so she couldn't do it. And then accidentally they heard Doris Day sing at a party, and they said, hey, let's give it to her. Rest is history. Doris Day became one of their very, very big musical comedy stars, but she was also able to handle drama as she did in Love Me or Leave Me, Storm Warning, and many an Alfred Hitchcock picture she made, Men Who Knew Too Much. Anyway, this is a fun musical comedy set on the high seas. Her co-star is Jack Carson, who was pretty much known as a light comedy second banana leading man, but he's got top billing in this. And Carson also best known for comedy, but he was also able to handle serious roles, as he did in A Star is Born and Mildred Pierce and a few others like that. Anyway, Doris sings a couple of her hit songs. One is called It's Magic. That is the very, very first 78 RPM record I bought with my own money. And another one was called It's You or No One. Really nice songs, and as I say, Doris Day was just such a delight on screen. Carson, I always enjoyed Carson. Very, very funny guy and enjoyable in whatever he did. So if you're looking for a kind of a lightweight fluff, lose the worries of the day, it's Romance on the High Seas, full color 1948, film debut for Doris Day.
Fritz, you say Judy Garland, something happened to her on the way to this film?
I don't know exactly the story behind. She was originally who Warner Brothers wanted to star in it, but for some reason she either passed or something happened. She couldn't. And then they offered it to Betty Hutton, but Betty was expecting. And apparently she was Doris Day is at a party with Julie Stein, and she happens to just sing as part of the party. And they said, that's the girl. So
I've seen some biographical work on Judy Garland, Fritz. I can imagine what happened to her on the way to this film.
Well, this is
that would have prohibited her.
This is 1948, so I don't think she had hit really the troubles that she ultimately came into early.
She was too young then.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
But she must have, maybe she was on loan out from MGM or something, because she was pretty much an MGM contract star. But according to my research, she was the first choice for Romance on the High Seas.
Doris Day has become a recluse in her later years. Has she not, Charlie? What happened to this woman?
Well, she's, in her upper 80s?
Yeah.
You know?
She hasn't been around
Almost
for 20 years.
Her birthday was this past week.
What was it?
Yes. But I'll always remember Doris Day, not for her movies, but for Sentimental Journey.
Oh, yeah.
That came at the end of World War II, and the servicemen stationed overseas cried when they heard that.
Right.
My dad was one of them, and it wasn't very long after that song came out, he was able to come back home.
I think one of the last things Doris Day did was an interview with Rock Hudson, where he was clearly suffering from the disease that would take his life, and he looked not as well as he did, and I think that's the last thing Doris really ever did. That was a talk show. I don't believe she ever did.
She also did a show, I think, about animal care and pets, because she was very active in that. But I don't think that she became a recluse in the Garbo sense. I think that, she said kind of like, I'm hanging up the hat, and now you might see me at the corner grocery store, but...
Like Carson.
Yeah.
Like Johnny Carson.
Well, she was the quintessential role model for women. I mean, she was just bright and breezy, and you just loved her. I did.
Remember the song Buttons and Bows?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
Bob Hope could belt that one out. He originated that, didn't he? In the
I
big broadcast of 1938, I believe. That's a great film.
Can I tell a quick Doris Day story?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's maybe in 1954-55. Doris Day is at the peak of her career. Everybody knows and loves her. I'm the Channel 10 night switchboard operator lobby person, and Doris was going to be interviewed on the Chet Long Show, which was a big news show at the time. And I'm sitting, and they tell me Doris Day is coming in. When she comes, tell her Chet will be with her. So I'm there at the front desk, and I look out, and here is just a regular city cab. Pulls up to the front of the Channel 10 walk. Cab driver gets out, opens the door, and out walks Doris Day. No entourage, no followers, no bodyguard. She comes up to Channel 10, flips open the big glass door, walks in, then walks up to me at the desk, and very modestly says, "Pardon me, but my name is Doris Day, and I'm here to see Mr. Long."
Wow.
And then she sat in a chair in the lobby across from this reception desk where I was, and she talked to me like she had known me all her life. Where do you go to school, and how long have you been in Channel 10, and what are you studying, and
Don't you love that when they...
But it's so different from the stars of today. Well, I only want purple M&Ms in my dressing room.
Whatever that's all about.
They pull up in a limo that starts in one county and ends in another one. But as I say, she regular city and the same thing happened with Esther Williams, who was equally big. Just out of a little city cab, Up to the door. Hi, my name is Esther Williams, and I'm here to see Chet Long. And boom.
I think we missed
They were-
that today.
yeah.
We missed that big time.
There's a lot of things we miss about
And
yesteryear.
they didn't get $3 million an episode
That's
like
true.
Charlie is asking for.
Oh boy, that's a whole subject unto itself. Charlie Sheen and his whole
I
rants and
am
raves.
so sick of hearing about Charlie Sheen.
It's kind of fading
Why?
away.
I mean, why? Oh, why?
Keeps his name
Do
in the
they
paper.
give him that much attention?
Well, but I mean,
It's obscene.
Look at Britney Spears, though.
always like
All the things she
That-
did, and now whoa, boy, here's Britney Spears.
give the public what they want, and
You know,
Better to be
it's a test-
infamous than talented. Now,
Well,
who was it that
it's-
said as long as you spell the name right?
that's right.
But you know, it's what our society is all about. I you know, really, it's not. It's frightening to me
Yeah, it's-
that people love that. They absolutely love to hear stories like that. I mean, they're just, you know,
I blame the news because the
not
news.
the news.
Well, now hold on, Marianne. The news is on too much. There should never be a 24-hour news channel.
Well, that's true.
We don't have enough news because then some of the stuff seeps in that is
Well, I
not
see what
news.
you mean, and that's true.
Give me a half hour a day and I'm okay.
Yeah, that's going to be out the window very soon.
We're going to talk about that at
six-
some point this week.
Yes, the 6 o'clock or the 6:30. Well, maybe the local news will be okay, but the NBC, ABC, CBS, they're on their way out as far as news is concerned because we have these cable news operations.
But you know what's funny? The ratings are less than the cable news operations, but just the sheer fact that they're on 24 hours a day
Yes.
keeps them on the air. They repeat everything 4 times an
Yes,
hour. I'm
yes.
so sick of that. And CNN's got this woman who comes on at 5 o'clock in the morning. I think she's in Bangkok. I don't know what in the world she's doing on CNN or what she's trying to sell. I don't know. Anyway, we'll move on because there were 2 questions in yesterday's program that I wanted to ask.
Okay.
Number 1, Charlie, how did Buckeye Chuck start?
I got to start right where we're recording this program. There was a brick factory next to the radio station, but it long passed on. But it was left a pile of bricks, 10 feet deep. And in those bricks lived all these groundhogs. My office was directly across the field, and I would notice the groundhog coming out every year. Not on the 2nd of February, sometimes 2 weeks or 3 weeks later than that, sometimes earlier. And I became known around the radio stations as the nut that looks for the groundhog. And
Before that, you were just the nut.
yeah, right.
Before
yeah.
that, you got a little
And-
longer title.
Ha! And so our news director said, Evers, we should make something out of this groundhog. You've been watching it for years. And so we went to the state legislature and got him named Ohio's official weather forecaster.
Wasn't there a year where Buckeye Chuck had passed away
Oh, yes.
before time for him to go on?
I didn't have a Buckeye Chuck. Every year I depended on the wildlife people to bring one from Deer Creek Lake that was in hibernation. We'd have to pry him out of his crate. But there were plenty of groundhogs here, but year after year the TV stations would come and point their cameras in an empty hole in the ground, and say, well, that's where he is. But so this one year, I exhausted all means, and somebody called me up and said, I've got a groundhog out here in the front yard in a bucket. Oh, great. I'm saved. I'm saved. And so I picked up the groundhog and put him in a little cage in the basement and gave him water and carrots to eat. The thing is, he never ate anything, he never drank anything. Now, what's going on with it? It's just a tiny groundhog. And so the day before the big day, I went down and he was dead. And so I reached in and I turned him over. And the thing, yes, if a groundhog does not chew on things, his teeth continue to grow. His teeth were sticking out of his upper part of his nose.
No.
If you can imagine that.
What did
How would you like to walk around with your teeth
You
sticking
should
out
have
of your
taken a
nose?
picture
What
of
did you do
that.
February 2nd, Charlie?
Oh, well, that was easy. he didn't decay right away. So
Oh,
I took
boy.
him out and I put him in the woods and put some straw around him, stretched him out because he was starting to rigor mortis on me. And a newspaper from Bucyrus came down and took pictures. There's Buckeye Chuck there. Oh, man.
This is the most horrible story I have ever heard. That is terrible.
I've gone through so many things like that in my career. It would take me 10 years to write a book about it.
I don't know how you follow that decaying groundhog. Well, he got his moment in the spotlight, though.
He sure
He
did.
got to be Buckeye Chuck. Fritz, where did the glasses come from? How did Night Owl Theater start?
Well, I was in a job at Channel 10, no longer exists. It was called staff announcer. And on Saturday night, Channel 10 was running an all-night movie that they called Night Owl Theater. And they had these little cartoon owls showing the night owl was supposed to be the audience. It would show the owl putting out the cat, making a sandwich, coming in from a date. Whatever you might be doing, you the audience might be doing while you were watching this movie, getting ready for bed, etc., etc., etc. So, as the staff announcer, I was the guy that had to say, stay tuned for Scott Spears. We'll get back to Scott Spears and ride out for revenge after these words. Well, I just started to comment on the movie as to what we had been seeing. And what happened was, since my voice was known so well from radio, people put that voice with the cartoon owl, and they started to write letters to Fritz the Night Owl, even though there was no official Fritz the Night Owl. And John Haldy, the program director at 10, said, hey, let's make a character called Fritz the Night Owl. And we discussed, really, going like a San Diego chicken suit. But because we also had to, as the staff announcer, we also had to sell things. They said, you know, an owl guy in an owl suit, okay, it'd be good for hamburgers or lightweight things, but you couldn't have the guy standing next to a new DeSoto or a refrigerator or something serious. So Elton John was big at the time, and Dave Wagstaff, the staff artist, and Haldy decided, okay, let's just put big glasses. And Dave Wagstaff got these off the rack at CBS, and he made the little horns and broke up some mirrors and glued them on, and the rest, it was that easy.
It's history.
Now, has anybody else ever worn the glasses?
Various and sundry. When we would do press conferences with some of the big stars, every summer when the new shows were coming on, Flippo and our morning girl and maybe one of the news people and myself would go, and CBS would have this big press thing where we get to interview all of them. And let's see, Dolly Parton wore them. Who was the girl on Dukes of Hazzard? Very, very.
Catherine Bach.
She wore them, and quite a few people did. And they had the pictures taken, and it was very fun. Actually, this is a second pair that an artist friend of mine made, simply because we thought that if they got broken, we should have another pair. Well, the original pair did get broken at some haunted house thing I was guesting at, and so these are the second pair. Difficulty to make them now is that this frame, which was right off the rack at Revco, is no longer available or nothing like it. So these I kind of watch a little bit more carefully than I did in the early days.
There's something else, I'll tell you, staring right at him here. I want to make a plea right now on this show. Marion Popcorn Festival has been going on for 30 years, Marianne, right?
Yes, I was on the original planning committee.
Original board.
In the original board.
We've had a lot of grand marshals over the years of the Marion Popcorn Festival, first weekend after Labor Day. Marianne's been the Grand Marshal. I have a list here. Flippo the Clown has been Grand Marshal. Jimmy Crumb has been Grand Marshal. Last year, Orville Redenbacher's daughter, Gail Tumanillo, was Grand Marshal. Bob Nunnally was Grand Marshal, who's from this area at one point. And this is my own belief here, but I believe it's a travesty of justice that Fritz the Night Owl has not been the Grand Marshal of the Marion Popcorn Parade. So I'm telling you right now, Marion Popcorn Parade Board of Directors, is that what they are, Marianne?
Yes, and they have a parade committee.
Listen, he's on television in Marion again. Fritz the Night Owl, 2011, Marion Popcorn Parade, Grand Marshal. What do you think, Marianne?
I think it's a great idea.
When is it?
First weekend after Labor Day.
Labor Day is September.
September, right. It's on a Thursday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if possible. There are a couple of health problems at home that might get in the curveball. But if available, if asked, I'd be honored.
Charlie, what do you think of that?
Yes, if asked, I will serve.
That's exactly right.
Who said that?
And availability. I mean, as I say, there's just
I don't know.
a kind
Was
of
that
a
Revolutionary
curveball out
War or
there.
was that some other war?
Yeah, who did say that? If
Somebody
asked,
out
I
there
will
let us
serve.
know.
We've got a few
Good
months
question.
before the Popcorn
Right.
Festival. Quite a few. We got a summer ahead of
But
us.
thanks for thinking of it.
No problem.
If asked and I can do it, I'd be glad to do it.
And hopefully they contact us and we get that done.
But actually, I've been at the Popcorn Festival in years past as a various guest, and also at the county fair. So
There you go.
Yeah. So I'm no stranger to the area.
Absolutely. Do want to get to the mailbag this week because we didn't do that last week. My husband and I yesterday flows by so fast. My husband and I are expecting our second child. We have planned since we have been together to have 2 children. When we told my mother-in-law the happy news, she took me aside and said if we were having another girl, we would need to try a few more times so that we can produce a boy to carry on the family name. My in-laws are not as interested in our daughter as I would have expected. Sometimes I think if we had a son, they would be more involved. My husband is now an only child. His brother died tragically 5 years ago. I don't really know what to say to her. We will love our child, girl or boy. I am not sure I want more than 2 children. How should I respond to her? Joan in Marion. Charlie, how would you respond to Joan in Marion?
I know this is an old tradition about, you've got to have a boy to carry on the name. I'm the last one to carry on my family's name, so.
You had 2 girls.
Yeah, I've got more than that. I've got 3 or 4 girls and 4 boys. And grandchildren, that is.
Grandchildren. But
Yeah,
two,
but I've
two-
got,
Yes.
I've had 3 daughters.
3 daughters.
Yes. I thought there'd never be another Evers.
Never, ever, ever.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That would have been a tragedy in this
Yeah,
area.
sure would.
Marianne, what do you tell us, lady?
I can understand wanting to extend the family and have the family name, go on forever. But I don't think that's very nice. I think if you have a healthy baby, regardless whether it's a girl or a boy, you should be very thankful. And it'd be nice if they'd have a boy, but I wouldn't feel that way.
Fritz, what's
Because I'm not a man, so maybe I would feel that way. I don't know.
I've heard
Maybe I'd
people
want
say
my
this
name.
more than this.
Yeah.
Just this. I've heard this problem. Fritz, what do you think?
Well, being the father of 5 sons and the grandfather of 10 granddaughters,
Wow.
I'm really not too hip on the thing. It's ironic. We were talking about Doris Day. I think all I could say would be to quote Doris Day, whatever hit songs, Que sera, sera. What will
Right.
be, will be.
Good.
Be grateful for God for that.
And try to calm down the poor mother. You don't want a bad relationship with
No.
the mother-in-law.
No.
Just say, I hope you can love our daughter as much as you love your other grandkids and so on and so forth. And I don't want to have any more kids. Honesty is the best policy.
It is.
So said Dagwood Bumstead.
Is that right?
Yes.
So said Charlie Evers right now. If you have a question for the mailbag, you can join us on Facebook under the name Scott Spears or email those questions to us at irmcommunication@gmail.com. Marianne, we all told a story from our broadcasting backgrounds. The one I wanted you to tell because I think it's fascinating with 2 minutes left in the program.
Okay.
Your name is not Michael's. That is not your maiden name.
No.
How did that happen?
Well, when I first went into broadcasting, that was back in 1973 when I went to Dayton, WDTN. And, they didn't have ethnic names in television. I mean, it was a Smith or a Jones or, something Anglo-Saxon. So Stolarczyk was, I couldn't be Marianne Stolarczyk. So I chose Marianne Scott because I wanted to keep my MAS initials. So that was fine. But when I went to WCMH, the news director said, Marianne, we have a Mona Scott. We can't afford another Scott. You're going to have to change your name. So my son's name is Michael. So I was Marianne Michaels.
I love that story.
Now they have all of these long, they said they couldn't get my name across the Vitafont. That's the reason, it was too long. Now, have you seen some of the names on TV? They're huge.
But there are two ladies on Columbus TV with AJ Smith and AJ something else.
And Charlie, AJ, we don't know. We'll find out on tomorrow's episode of The Exchange. Scott Spears for Marianne Michaels, Charlie Evers, Fritz the Night Owl, saying make it a great one.